want you to put me in this elimination chamber.
Now, there have been some incredibly memorable returns that have become legendary in the WWE's history books. Returns such as Edge at 2020's Royal Rumble, John Cena returning at 2008's Royal Rumble, and even The Rock returning to WWE in 2011 were all memorable, and all of them made the crowd go absolutely insane.
Because the champ is here! What the hell?
However, there are times when a superstar returns and the return falls completely flat.
And that was Tatanka eliminated.
The returns were just so limp that you just even felt bad for the wrestler. But which times were they? Well, join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at 10 of the saddest WWE returns ever. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos, and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Number 10, Sunny in 2009.
Listen, you Sunny wannabe. What Sunny wants, Sunny gets.
As Sunny was quite often referred to as the first diva of WWE. She was an extremely popular figure in the mid-90s and would often get bigger reactions than most of the men in the company. But fast forward to WrestleMania 25, and WWE would book a Miss WrestleMania Battle Royal, and it featured a number of legendary female superstars as well as members of the current roster. Well, the issue was that all the divas came to the ring together, meaning nobody got an entrance, and it also meant that they glossed over one of the biggest returns, which just so happened to be Sunny, and fans had no idea she was in the match until it was mentioned on commentary.
You see who that is in there, King? That's Sunny! One of the greatest WWE divas of all time! Where's Sunny?
It was truly sad to see someone who was referred to as the first diva treated in such a lackluster manner. Number 9, Jake the Snake Roberts in 2005.
My next guest, ladies and gentlemen, in Jerichoholics, is Jake the Snake Roberts!
On the March 14th, 2005 edition of Raw, Chris Jericho would host a highlight reel with special guest Randy Orton. The purpose of Orton being a guest on the show was to discuss Orton's upcoming match with The Undertaker at WrestleMania 21. Now, Jericho would inform Orton that he had a surprise for him, and out came the legendary Jake the Snake Roberts. Now, even though Roberts received a great reaction from the crowd, he had clearly seen better days. Now, Roberts was notably going through a tough time at this point, and his performance in the segment didn't go down too well with WWE officials. Perhaps even worse was when he returned at Old School Raw, interrupting the Shield and barely getting any reaction from the crowd.
You gotta be kidding me!
That crowd simply just did not deserve him. Number 8, Jack Swagger in 2013.
I want you to put me in this elimination chamber.
In 2012, former world champion Jack Swagger went on an extended losing streak. The streak would culminate when he would inform Raw General Manager AJ Lee that he would be taking time off, as in his words, he was better than this.
Everyone knows that I'm better than this, all right? I don't know what happened to me, but I'm better than this.
Almost 6 months after Swagger taking time off, he would finally return to WWE in one of the most underwhelming returns ever. Swagger would make his return in February of 2013 on an episode of SmackDown. He would interrupt Booker T and inform Booker that he wanted to be featured in the upcoming Elimination Chamber match, which would determine the #1 contender for the world title at WrestleMania 29. But the issue was that simply nobody cared about Swagger. He got zero reaction upon his return, and it was a massive shame to see how Swagger was viewed in the eyes of the audience and as a former champion. Number 7, Barry Windham in 1996. The Stalker is often referred to as one of the most forgettable gimmicks of the WWE's New Generation era. The Stalker was a new character for wrestling legend Barry Windham, and in essence, the character would be a former military man who wore camouflage face paint and would be billed as being from the dark jungles of the environment, wherever the hell that is. The issue was that Windham didn't agree to the original storyline for the new character. Now, they had planned to involve the Stalker kidnapping Sable and cutting her throat open, a truly bizarre storyline that would have had no place in 1996. As Windham refused to do the storyline, they would debut the Stalker as a babyface, which made no sense, and the crowd couldn't care less about the character. The gimmick was dropped within a year, and Windham would move on to form the New Blackjacks with Bradshaw. Number 6, Tatanka in 2016. Our fans were shocked at WrestleMania 32 during the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal when Cole addressed the fact that Tatanka was in the match.
And that was Tatanka eliminated.
Many fans didn't even know he was in the match until he was eliminated, making his return incredibly underwhelming. Interestingly, Tatanka's appearance at WrestleMania 32 was his first Mania appearance in 21 years. Number 5, Eugene in 2009.
As you can see, it's Eugene trying to make it back into the WWE.
Eugene was one of the most controversial characters that surfaced during the Ruthless Aggression era. He was a wrestler who had learning difficulties, and the gimmick received a lot of criticism for being very insensitive. That's why when WWE decided to bring the character back in 2009, fans didn't really know what to make of him returning, and it fell completely flat. It didn't help that the WWE at this point was a PG product, meaning to feature a character that was so controversial in a PG environment wasn't the best move from a PR point of view. Eugene would wrestle a total of 1 match during his WWE return in 2009 in a losing effort to The Miz. Eugene got zero reaction upon his return, and he wasn't exactly in the best shape. He would be released shortly after the match, and he would reveal that Vince McMahon didn't like the way he looked and had no desire to feature him on WWE programming. Number 4, Maria in 2017.
On SmackDown Live, the power of love!
And when it was announced that Maria, alongside her husband Mike Kanellis, had signed to the WWE in 2017, fans didn't really know what to expect. Maria was a regular on television during the Ruthless Aggression era, undertaking various roles, including one as a dumb backstage interviewer, even though she was secretly smart. Maria would make her grand return during the 2017 Money in the Bank pay-per-view, and she would reveal that herself and Mike were in the WWE to bring the power of love. The segment was completely flat, and the audience really just didn't even care. Just a few months after Maria returned to WWE, she would go on a leave of absence due to her pregnancy. Upon returning, she was involved in some horrendous storylines, including her winning the 24/7 title, and even a storyline revolved around Mike Kanellis not being the father of her child. By the summer of 2020, both Maria and Mike would be released from the WWE. Now, there was huge potential, but WWE wasted it. Number 3, Carlito in 2010. In 2010, WWE made the decision to split the popular duo of Carlito and Primo, collectively known as the Colones. The belief was that Carlito would be returning to singles competition, whilst Primo would try his luck as a babyface character. But sadly for Carlito, the split did him no favours, and WWE actually took him off television for 2 months with the logic of bringing him back with a new edge. The return would eventually take place in November of 2010, and John Cena would be in the ring and Cena would call out Sheamus. However, it wouldn't be Sheamus who would come out to the ring, it would be the returning Carlito. This acted as a throwback to Carlito's debut 5 years prior, and could have been a great segment if the crowd wasn't dead. Carlito sadly received zero reaction, and at the end of the segment, he was hit by an AA. It was a shame that this was the best creative decision they could have made for his return. Number 2, Vader in 2005. The return of Vader in 2005 should have been awesome. Vader had an extremely physical wrestling style which was perfect for the Ruthless Aggression era, and he had notoriety, so it was logical to bring him back into the mix. Unfortunately, his return was awful. On the Halloween edition of Raw in 2005, Jonathan Coachman announced he had backup for his match at the upcoming Taboo Tuesday pay-per-view, and out came Vader and Goldust. Goldust looked okay, but Vader was simply all over the place. He would botch moves and he would attack Funaki and even tripped when he got out of the ring. At the pay-per-view itself, things didn't get much better as Vader was notably slow and clunky, and they didn't offer Vader a contract and he wouldn't be seen in a WWE ring for the next 7 years. And number 1, Brian Christopher in 2011. Brian Christopher, aka Grandmaster Sexay, was one of the most popular stars of the Attitude Era. Alongside Rikishi and Scotty 2 Hotty, the trio were responsible for some of the hottest and most talked about segments from that time period. But fast forward a decade after Too Cool would disband, WWE decided to return Brian as part of the infamous Michael Cole vs Jerry Lawler storyline. On the March 14, 2011 edition of Raw, Cole would introduce Brian, and Brian came out to one of the most somber reactions we've ever heard.
Brian Christopher!
Turn it up!
They didn't seem to even know who Brian actually was. And secondly, the segment was very uncomfortable as it reflected the real-life relationship between Brian and Lawler, which made it far too real for a lot of viewers at home. Brian Christopher definitely deserved better. But there you have it, folks, 10 of the saddest WWE returns. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.